What it do, cuckolds? It's your boy, the hater, up in this piece. And it's Tuesday, which means hater outdoors. And it's time for a random video. But this one is a personal favorite of mine that I've been mulling over for several days. Now, before we start, please take a moment, if you haven't, to subscribe. It takes 1 second and it helps your boy out tremendously. Also, as part of my new catchphrase, the reality of my videos is that as they go on, they get better. So if you're not watching the whole video, you're missing out. So watch till the end because it gets better at the end, cucks. Now, with that being said, let's get to the topic at hand. The topic at hand is wrestling championships. Primarily, we're going to be focusing on world titles because those are the only ones that actually matter. But everything that I'm going to say applies to every title, from the world title all the way to the NXT Speed title and every other measurable title that can be analoged to these titles, right? So we've got the Midcard Titles. There's like 5 of them in AEW. You catch the drift, right? Now, only a complete moron wouldn't be able to recognize what has been happening. What's been happening is that wrestlers wrestle less frequently. I don't know what they did to kind of, negotiate this for themselves, but everybody wrestles less frequently. And as a direct result, the champions also wrestle less frequently. But the champions wrestle very, very infrequently, unlike other jobbers who, are pretty much keeping the show going, right? Your Tozawas, your Otises, your Xavier Woods, these people that are wrestling relatively frequently, but that have matches that are completely meaningless and that nobody could possibly care about. Now, to balance this, the WWE primarily, and other companies too, AEW does the same thing. What they do is they create more titles. And every title that is added to the pantheon of titles dilutes every other title. I'll give you a great example. In the UFC has 1 title per weight class. Currently, the World Heavyweight Champion, John Jones, is being accused of ducking the interim heavyweight champion, Tom Aspinall. Now, because there's 2 titles, neither of these 2 guys is the undisputed world champion, right? It is disputed because there are 2 people that can claim, one way or another, that they are the World Heavyweight Champion. Every other division, as of now, has 1 title. So the guy is on top and he has no other goals, right? If you're the welterweight champion, you just are the welterweight champion. And you have really no other goals unless you want to move up or down a weight class. Wrestling should be the same. There should be 3 titles. There should be the tag team titles, right? Because that's like a storied form of wrestling. The main title, and if you must have it, the women's title. Now, I understand. Not everyone is going to be able to reach these heights, so you have to have maybe 1 mid-card title. That's it. And if you have cruiserweights, you add a cruiserweight title because they wrestle differently. So that makes it interesting. But nowadays, we have too many titles. And each time a title is introduced, the value of all the other titles goes down by a factor of 1 divided by the current number of titles. Think about it this way, right? LA Knight, for example, a lot of people's, including your boy's, favorite wrestler right now, is the United States champion. And in a promo, when he explained that he's rejecting the offer to join the bloodline, he explained that his priority is the US title. But what does this mean? This means that LA Knight, who is a star, or at least a star in the making if you don't want to consider him a star yet, has no aspirations to become the world champion. He is satisfied with his title, which is perfectly fair because that was his goal and he achieved it. Now imagine if someone creates, the North American title, not the NXT one, but they create like a main roster version of it. Now there's another mid-card champion. Then we have the Intercontinental title. Then we have the NXT Speed title. We have all these titles where there's 1 wrestler at a time who can just say, I am the champion of this particular concept or division, and that's it. That's all that matters. I have no aspirations to do anything else. So if LA Knight is the mid-card champion and doesn't want to be the main champion, that means the main championship is not worthy of pursuing. So the more people you have hindered by mid-card meaningless belts, the less valuable the world title seems in comparison. The same thing can be said, obviously, about the tag team titles and about the mid-card titles. Now we're going to have a women's US title. which obviously will be followed by a women's intercontinental title that's obviously coming down the pipeline. So now, if you're Jade Cargill in AEW and you're the TBS champion or whatever, right? You have no aspirations to become the women's champion, which means now we have to wonder which champion is more legit. But the problem with that is that the WWE or AEW tell us explicitly which championship is more legit by putting that championship in the focus and in the main event. So this, coupled with the fact that champions no longer wrestle, creates a bottleneck where nobody knows what the fuck they're doing and everybody is confused as to what their role is. In addition, the worst part, the most sinister part, in the opinion of the hater, is that in the past, wrestling was predicated along the following factors. As a fan, you pick someone that you like the most, right? For whatever reason. Usually, there's no reason to even explain it. People like this guy because he's likable, let's say, right? So let's say I pick LA Knight. Now, my desire as a fan is for LA Knight to become the world champion. However, if LA Knight is happy being the United States champion, I have no reason to hope for LA Knight to become the world champion. LA Knight has no reason to enter the Royal Rumble. He said straight up that he's happy with the Midcard title. So why are you even entering the Royal Rumble? You should be defending the United States title at the Royal Rumble, right? You should be bringing prestige to your title. Now, here's the problem. I don't even want LA Knight to become the world champion at this point. Because if he becomes the world champion, then he might wrestle once every 6 weeks. And I'd like to see him wrestle because I like him, cuckolds. You see what I'm saying? So now, the incentive structure of the fan has been completely perverted. I have no interest in my guy, if you will, becoming the world champion because all that means is that I'm not going to see them wrestle. It should be the opposite. I should want my guy to be the champion so that he or she or they, in the context of a tag team, have the capacity to continue wrestling and have some form of job security. Right? I'll give you a great, very small, but very great example of this. Back in the day, they had a championship scramble, right? And the way that the championship scramble worked was you had an interim champion until the match is over. And in this match, the Brian Kendrick was interim champion for like 2 minutes, right? He was interim WWE champion. Now, immediately I thought to myself, oh, that's great because in the context of this match, this means that he's going to be involved in more spots probably because he's the guy to go after now. Also, in the greater context of wrestling, this means that we're probably going to see more Brian Kendrick next week because now he is able to pin at least one person in this championship match. So this elevates him, right? Someone who doesn't have job security, like Brian Kendrick, by being the champion, you're like, oh, now I know for a fact I'm going to see this guy at least one more time. Another example of this is when the WWE and WCW started to merge. There were people in WCW, like Gregory Helms, who was then known as Shane Helms. Shane Helms was the WCW Cruiserweight Champion. And I really liked Shane Helms. So I thought to myself, well, it's really good that he's the Cruiserweight Champion because one way or another, he's probably going to have at least one more match, right? He's going to have one match to at least get the title off of him. Nowadays, it's the opposite. If you win the title, the chances are still that obviously you're going to have at least one more match, but this match might be in 3 months. Cookie Rhodes, as far as I can remember, hasn't defended the title in at least 2 months, right? He hasn't done anything of value in 2 months. And the same thing will happen to the next champion. And the same thing will happen to the next mid-card champion. Like, has Gunther even defended the title once? I don't think he's defended it once. Maybe there was that one match with Randy Orton, which nobody cared about, but that's it. He's been champion for like 4 months now, and he's defended it 0 times, or 1 time, I should say. So why would I want the people that I like to be champions? I would rather them not be champions because that way I get to see them wrestle more frequently. And that's fundamentally what wrestling's all about. The new model, which is pretty much stolen from New Japan, is you have the young boys doing all the hard work, and then the champions wrestle once every 3 months, right? And they have like 1 defense, and then they have a title reign for like 6 months with like 2 defenses. You know what I mean? So with that being said, this is not a good way to do it. Title defenses are what matter. Even in a sport like the UFC, for example, right? Or a league, I should say, like the UFC, people get angry when champions are inactive, like John Jones, right? People don't like that kind of stuff because there is this understanding that if you're the champion in anything, you have to defend your title. This was the premise of being a champion. Remember the age-old adage, it's harder to remain champion than it is to become champion? That's completely out the door now. It very obviously is much easier to remain champion than it is to become champion. Because once you're champion, you can be champion for 2 years and wrestle 5 times. So there's nothing difficult about it. The idea was predicated under the concept that if you're the champion, everyone is after you. You're everyone's target because everyone wants the title. But nowadays, we very clearly see that Gunther has one target, Damon Priest. Cody Rhodes has currently 0 targets. He has 0 targets. Nobody wants to wrestle Cody for the title. The next feud is going to be Cucky versus Cucky Owens, which we've already seen, by the way. But we're going to see it again. But the feud is not predicated on Kevin Owens wanting to be champion. The feud is predicated on Kevin Owens thinking he's right about this whole circle jerk. So if Kevin Owens doesn't care, and the only person that cares is Cody, LA Knight doesn't care, you know? Like Andrade is like the speed champion or whatever. He doesn't care. He's going after the US title when he has time. Carmelo Hayes doesn't care. Who cares? Why should I care? So as far as I'm concerned, world titles, and all titles really, but world titles specifically and especially, have been rendered completely meaningless. I don't care who the champion is, and I don't care who beats Cody. It's not going to feel like a big moment, because if it's someone that we like, then it's going to be like, oh, okay, this guy's going to wrestle once every 6 months now, so who's the next guy? The question will always be, who's the next guy? Which brings me to my next video that I will be dropping probably tomorrow, right? About the next guy. So, in summation, we recognize now, through this video, through the haters' explanations to y'alls, that championships are no longer interesting and they're no longer fun. This is also evidenced by the WWE's booking decisions themselves. They have no problem whatsoever in putting Cody Rhodes in a meaningless match against Gunther, or in a meaningless tag team match with Roman Reigns. What was the point of that, by the way? You know, shouldn't Cody be their ally? He's like a built-in ally. He was Roman Reigns' last partner when he fought the Bloodline like a month ago, you know? And he hasn't wrestled since, as far as I know. That was 2 months ago. Sorry, he wrestled one time against Gunther. So that's the thing. And a lot of people, I saw this guy who doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about in my comments. He's like, Cody shows up. That's what matters. No, that's not what matters. What the fuck are you talking about? I don't give a rat's ass if Cody shows up and cuts a shitty promo. He's not good at promos. What do I care that he showed up to go into an ambulance? You know? Everyone shows up like that. Everyone shows up. Who cares? Oh, wow, this guy showed up. That's the standard? This guy showed up? How about this guy entertained me? Was anyone, literally, was there one person in the history of the world, in the history of wrestling fans, that was entertained by Cody showing up and getting into an ambulance with Randy Orton? It's impossible. It's impossible to be entertained by that because it was not entertaining. So, let's not forget, this is entertainment presented as sports. So, you have to do one of two things. Ideally, you have to do both. All the great wrestlers did both. The Rock wrestled all the fucking time, nearly every week, and if he wasn't wrestling that week, he would entertain us for like 35, 40 minutes every week. There would be like 3 segments, 4 segments with The Rock, and then maybe a match as well. Like the entire show was built around entertainment. Now the entire show is built around everyone ducking everyone. Nobody wrestles anymore. It's really, really a big problem. But we'll address some of that in the next video, cuckolds. Take care of yourselves and your mothers.